are you doing HRT
You
or something?
want
Like,
steroids?
yeah, you want something? Well, no, because you're so ripped.
I've been on hormone replacement therapy from the moment my hormones started to shift. If I could go back in time and tell my younger self something, it would have been start creatine in your teens.
People in the fitness realm I've seen get very, very angry, right, about this.
GLP-1s, I think they're the greatest longevity peptide, and they're being used completely inappropriately.
So I'm just going to say a quick, like 2 sentences about JJ Virgin, because JJ Virgin you've had like how many New York Times bestselling books in the fitness and health space?
4.
4. Okay.
4.
And you are one of my go-tos for information, because what I love about you is that you're really good at breaking down sometimes very complicated matters or things that may be just kind of like overwhelming into layman's terms. And I appreciate that about you. So I love that you're on my podcast today.
Well, thank you very much. I took a personality test, and I am a simplifier.
Really? Oh,
Yes.
Which one? Which one did you take?
I forget which one this one was. Like, usually all the ones all say the same thing, but this was a totally different test, and it gave 4 different ways people behave in business, and I'm a simplifier. And I go, that's absolutely true.
That is, and you've been doing this for how many years now? 30? Like how many years?
Almost. Well, truthfully, I started teaching calisthenics and tap dance in high school. So if you count the calisthenics in high school, it's over 40.
Wow. So you came by this honestly. This has always been a very big piece of your life.
It's only been, all I've ever done is health and wellness. Like, I was catering, but healthy food catering. I did want to be an actress, but then I, switched off of that.
So is it so is it something that you always just inherently had an interest for, or was there like a reason? Like a lot of times I find people who are like fitness experts are typically because they had some kind of like issue. They were overweight as a kid, or they had to like overcome something where, they went into this space because of something that they had. Or was it just like a love for athletics or tap dancing, or what was it?
I've always loved exercise and nutrition, like always. From when I was 12. I mean, actually, I started dance class at 3 and acrobatics. I've always loved it.
And but I think what I want to ask you this, because I feel like over the years, right, everything kind of has like their fads and trends and ebbs and flows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't want to know and hear about the actual things that work, right? Like, basically eating properly, exercising a certain amount. There's all these like longevity hacks and health hacks and fitness trends. What would you say over the years, right? Would you say have been kind of, you think, that stands the test of time, that are the things that actually move the needle, that people don't want to know that they should do, and without the fluff?
I'll tell you what, I love the fact that Brian Johnson's spending $2 million a year to find out that diet, exercise, sleep, and good relationships are what make you healthy and extend your lifespan. I was like, no duh. And when you get down to it, moving and eating and sleeping are the things. Like, they're the things. And I was just at this really cool conference this weekend, Eudaimonia, and someone was asking me, because my buddy Dave has been out saying that you can like hack your exercise to 20 minutes a week or something ridiculous. And I'm like, no, you can't. No, you cannot. You can't hack these things because you just got to move more. It's like flossing. So, there's just certain things that you just have to do. And if anything, as we get more and more into this, I feel like exercise used to be this kind of nice to do thing. But as we move into the longevity space, it's not an optional. It is a must do thing.
Well, yeah, my concern with and I talk about longevity all the time. I do so many things myself, and like people are always saying to me, well, does that work? Does that actually work? And honest to God, I don't know, right? Because I'm like, you do so many things. You don't know what works, what doesn't work. What do you say, and what do you feel are the things that work, like for sure? Like, give me, like when you're saying diet and exercise. Okay, we got that. Is there a particular diet?
Broad brush,
Yes,
though,
exactly. Huge.
I mean, What could that be? And here's the thing. I think it's a hierarchy. What I see in the space that drives me bananas is that we are majoring in the minors. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not worried about your red light therapy if you are not moving. You're sitting here trying to pump up your mitochondria with red light. Why don't you just do a little HIIT training? So I think there's some things that are nice to have, but there are some foundational things that it is so clear that we need to have. And like when you come down to it, it's having skeletal muscle that's high quality, it's strong, it's powerful, it's having a great heart that you've pushed by doing high intensity interval training, and it's moving more all throughout the day because we were meant to move.
Right. I mean, how have you changed your workouts over the years?
Well, it's pretty interesting. When I was in graduate school, we were taught, I kid you not, we were taught, do not have people lift weights until they lose the weight. Now, I was paying my way through graduate school as one of those first personal trainers. And what I quickly discovered was they weren't going to get any better unless I had them lifting weights. Like nothing was changing. Weights are like your metabolic Spanx that holds everything in tighter, gets you insulin sensitive, boosts your metabolism. So I just ignored, but most of my professors were like overweight, which I thought bizarre and made no sense, right?
Right.
Especially when you got in the nutrition department. The exercise department, not as much as the nutrition department. And in the nutrition department, I was taught that you could get everything you needed from a potato.
Yeah.
From women that literally look like potatoes. I'm like,
Right.
how are we going to get optimal protein from that potato right there? Now, if we're on Mars and this is all we have, okay, fine. But other than that, I think we can do better. Um, so I literally, way back then, everything was about cardio. And at first I was doing loads and loads of cardio. And then I did a massive flip early on into resistance training and high intensity interval training. And I never looked back, mainly because I hate doing endurance cardio. It's not fun. It takes up a lot of time. But in my 20s, I was doing a lot of it and a lot of resistance training. And what's interesting is I have more muscle. I'm stronger now than I was in my 20s because I was doing loads of cardio and loads of resistance training. I dumped a lot of the cardio, flipped it into high intensity interval training. I, walk and ruck. And I'm now, more ripped than I am now than I was then.
Yeah, you look insanely good. I mean, I was going to ask you, are you on are you doing HRT or
You
something?
want
Like,
steroids?
yeah, are you on something? Well, no, because you're so ripped. And if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
So I'm 60 wonderful, and
60. Wonderful. Okay.
60 wonderful, and I'm an open book. I'll tell you everything I'm doing. I've been on hormone replacement therapy from the moment my hormones started to shift. And here's what was super cool about that. So when I was on Dr. Phil, he had a little chapter in his book called Weight Loss Resistance. And I thought, what a concept. I fell in love with this idea because working in real life, working in the wild, I saw people that were eating right, exercising, and stuck, especially, perimenopausal women. And this whole idea that nothing changes when you're perimenopausal, your metabolism stays the same is gotta be men saying that. Not one perimenopausal woman will say that to you, I don't think,
Yeah.
you know? So I looked at all this and went, "All right." And I can't remember what the question was. What were we talking about?
I was asking you about like
Oh,
you are
what am I
so
taking?
ripped. Yeah. Like,
Okay.
what is it? And when
Yeah.
did you start? Because I think
Okay.
that's a big question that people are very confused with.
Well,
Unless,
you start when things start to shift. So that's different for everybody. That could be late 30s, it could be early 40s. For me, like early 40s, I think I was around 44. I remember all of a sudden, I used to always be the sweaty one, like sweaty, 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 and all of a sudden I'm cold and I got a little constipated and I started to lose my eyebrow. And this happened like that. And one of my friends was an integrative med doc who was like, looked at my TSH, which was 2.25. I remember totally in the range. And I was hypothyroid. And the minute he gave me a little thyroid, it's like the lights came back on, everything normalized. The next thing that happened was I could not recover from my workouts like I used to. Now I know from, Dr. Vonda Wright that this is musculoskeletal syndrome due to menopause. But back then I was like, I had no clue. I was just like, what is going on? And my gums started to bleed a little bit. And my dentist is like, that's low estrogen. So the minute these things started to show up, I started to treat it. So I started first with thyroid. Then I did a little testosterone, which helped bring my estrogen back. I never did progesterone until I started to really use estrogen consistently, because for me, progesterone makes me gain weight and weep. It just,
Yeah. Wow.
I never felt good on it. In fact, we had a doctor in Palm Desert, California, who literally, he was a nut job. He put everybody on progesterone therapy, men and women. He thought everyone was progesterone deficient, and he would put them on like 100, 200 milligrams every single day. And then he put everyone on thyroid with the goal to drive their TSH to as close to zero as possible. I mean, horrible. And he put me on progesterone. I gained 12 pounds in a week. I was like, okay, this is not for me.
Yeah.
So now once I started to get, more into perimenopause, I started to cycle it in, but low dose, where, most people are doing about 100 milligrams. I was doing 50. So I never could use that. And that's why I say these things, you have to know the symptoms of the different hormones and what's low, and really where your ideal levels would be, and pay a close attention, because there's no way a doctor's going to know that. They won't know how you're feeling. They're not inside, in with you. But literally have been on hormones since my, what, mid 40s.
And do you feel at this stage, are you still having to tweak it depending on different things, or now you have it not, like, is it dialed in at a certain point?
It's dialed in. What was interesting is, once you get through menopause, life is it's fabulous. I always say, there's two amazing things: empty nesting and menopause. These are like amazing things that I hear people go, oh my God, empty nesting. I'm like, it's the greatest thing ever.
Right, you have your life back.
It's fantastic. They come over, they leave. It's awesome. And then,
How old are your kids,
menopause,
by the way?
they're 27 and 28.
Okay, that's great. Yeah.
Yes. So menopause, once your hormones are stabilized, it's the perimenopause that's like crazy, because you're trying to like shift things when they're all over the place and trying to supplement that way. Um, the only time I had to shift this a little bit is I went to Korea a couple years ago and got on this very special ginseng, and it made my hormone receptors more sensitive, and I was able to lower my doses, which was pretty cool.
Oh, wow. So
I know, I didn't put it together until I was hearing a lecture at A4M, and I went, oh, that's what happened. I was like, what happened?
that's so I find that, like, the problem is that I hear a lot with me. I get asked this a bunch. Like, if people are going on on testosterone, but they're not doing estrogen yet, and like, there's so much information out there, and I think people then stop. They don't even do anything, because they're like, it's basically like an analysis paralysis, right? You don't know what to do, so you don't do anything.
You find a really good doctor that knows this stuff, that actually specializes in menopause, right? Which is
Right.
amazing, that you could be a gynecologist and not trained in menopause, and you'll hear all of them telling you, yeah, we didn't get trained in it. So you find someone trained in hormone replacement therapy, because you might need testosterone and not estrogen. You might, it's like everybody is different, and it's not like the guy in Palm Desert with standard dosing. That's crazy. That makes no
Right.
sense.
What about supplementation? For example, creatine is a hot topic now. Everyone's talking about it. And I think women are still very nervous about creatine, because we remember that people, like men who are always taking creatine, and they look
Yeah.
big and bulky. Um, what's your stance on creatine? Do you take it?
So I just came out with a product. Actually, I launched it at Eudaimonia, called, my husband named this, wait for it, Creatine.
Oh, cute. I
Is
like
it
it.
cute? Okay, here's
Yeah.
what happened. So if I could go back in time and tell my younger self something, it would have been, start creatine in your teens. Now, I was training people at Gold's Gym in Venice, and there were all those big dudes, and they all took creatine. I'm like, I'll have none of that. Thank you. Right.
Right.
And, creatine does not make you have big muscles. It doesn't. If it did, it would be banned substance. What creatine does is it gives your body creatine for the phosphocreatine system to make ATP. So it helps you make energy. And creatine is is in your muscles and in your brain. If you have enough. If you don't have enough, it's not going to be in your brain, but it's in your muscles and your brain. I think it is the single most important supplement beyond the basics of like D and K, magnesium, and fish oil for women 40 plus. I think it should be an absolute, you need this for a couple different reasons. Number one, it's going to help with energy production. And one of the biggest complaints as women start to get into perimenopause is that they have poor energy. This can help, and it can help not just with body, but can help with mental, like with focus, with mood. In fact, there was a study done on postmenopausal women on SSRIs, and those who did creatine actually had way better changes in their mood than those who didn't. They're now doing studies on it for neurodegenerative diseases and for cognition. So it helps you work out harder because of the energy. It also helps you with recovery, but it doesn't build you don't take creatine, sit on the couch, and something happens. Now, here's what happened. As I started to dig into this a couple of years ago, I looked at, I'm like, everybody needs to be on this, right? And especially women, we have less tissue stores of this than men do. So I was like, we need this, and we need it in our brains. And so I was like, pushing it. I was a creatine pusher. And everything I'd ever heard was monohydrate. It's the most studied. So do that one, which is true. It's the most studied, but it's kind of like, a rotary phone. Just because we've always used it doesn't mean that's the best one, right? I mean, would you switch over, would you still be using a rotary phone at this point? No, you would not. So what I kept hearing back from women, and these were some of my closest friends who are doctors who are like, I'm not going to take it. I don't like the way I feel. I feel bloated. My stomach hurts. I was like, just get through it. And they wouldn't. And I go, oh, this is a problem. Well, a year and a half ago, I was speaking at a medical conference and talking about powerful aging. And I talked about creatine, and this researcher followed me out, and he's the one who developed and patented creatine HCl and showed me all the research showing that creatine monohydrate, about 15% of it actually gets into your bloodstream. And so that other stuff is causing some of that extracellular fluid retention, some of the GI issues. So he went to solve the problem and created an HCl version that all of it gets into the bloodstream. So you need a seventh of the dose, and you don't get those side effects that are, frustrating women. So I wouldn't have done this, except I kept hearing from women I was like, all right. So that's what I created, was a creatine HCl. And what you'll hear out there is, well, monohydrate's the one you should take. It's the most studied, and all the rest are marketing hypes, and they're just more expensive. Except the reality is you need a smidge compared to the monohydrate. So BS. And I had all the research studies to show this uptake, and it's significant. So it's pretty interesting. So that's what we just launched, because I want women to take it, and I know how crazy we get with weight.
We do. And of course we do. It's all psychological. That's why we are cardio junkies, right? Because we think if we're sweating harder and we're moving faster and we're doing it longer, that we're getting a better result. And that's like the same thing. I think
so 80s.
It's so 80s, but the
so
truth
80s.
But yet that's what you see. Like, there was a great meme that was going around that someone sent me of like middle-aged women exercising. They're doing everything but with the exercises they should be doing.
Right.
They're like bouncing on a swing outside, or they're
on the rebounder.
Yeah, they're on the rebounder. That was one of them.
Do you remember the rebounder? So when I was at UCLA, I still remember this in the sorority house, because somewhere the idea was like you could burn 100 calories with 10 minutes of rebounding. So literally people were like pigging out and jumping on the rebounder.
Totally.
I mean, it's
totally.
Like, our body is not a bank account. I mean, come on.
It's true. And I feel like, listen, the way I look at it is like, some movement's better than zero movement. So all the power to you. But if you want to change your body composition, it's not going to be doing that. And that's just the bottom line. You don't have to believe it, but the proof is in the pudding.
It's just science, and here's the big challenge is, unless you're tracking your body composition, you wouldn't know anyway. And this is why we have to move off of weight, and we have to go to what that weight's made up of. Because, my husband, case in point, weighs the same as he's always weighed. And he's always been athletic. He's a volleyball player. He was a baseball player. And so couple years ago, we go get our DEXA scans because I'm getting in the best shape of my life for 60. So I trot him on in there. He's always like, we'll go along with whatever I come up with. And he was a skinny fat. He was 25% body fat, which is high for a man, and he
Yeah.
was a skinny fat. I was like way lower than him. And I was like, wow. At first I was like, the machine must be wrong, except it can't be wrong. It can't be that wrong. Right.
Yeah.
So we completely shifted his programming. He'd been resistant to going on testosterone. He had lower T, gets on testosterone therapy, but also starts finally tracking his protein and getting the protein he needed, starts finally doing his creatine. Like he does all the things that I'd been like yakking about to do. He does them all, starts lifting heavier. And he drops 27 pounds of fat and puts on 24 pounds of muscle. Now, 3-pound change. Looks like an
Wow.
entirely different body. I mean, this is he looks like a high school, volleyball player body now.
Wow.
It's a 3-pound change. 3 pounds. He went from 25% body fat to 10% body fat.
And so is it because he was doing heavier weight more consistently and he dropped the other kind of more of a cardio, like biking, volleyball, whatever
He was never doing, he does volleyball. He'll do that for HIIT training. He was never doing, when I met him, he was drinking smoothies with juice and running. So we stopped that quickly. But, he was not doing heavy weights, and he wasn't eating enough protein, and he wasn't consistent with things like creatine until he got the DEXA. And that's why these things are so important. Because when you see it in real life, you can't go, oh, because he looked fine. You would never have thought anything of it, but the difference now is insane.
Wow. No, I know. Can you walk me through, but before you do, actually, I want to just finish on the creatine because I have one question for you. I think a big issue with is bloating. Women get bloated because the amounts that maybe they're taking. Is there a way to eliminate bloating from taking creatine? Is it just the amount? Is there other things that we should be?
Take creatine HCl. You won't get bloated.
So you won't get bloated with that one. Okay.
No. You may get a little bit of fluid into your muscles if you're lucky.
Okay.
That's what you want to have happen. You might get a little bit of it. If anything, it would be a half pound to a pound that would normalize, but you want that. If you could get that, you should celebrate it. I didn't.
You didn't get that.
I wish I had, because that's good. Remember, when you're doing bioimpedance scales at home to check your your body composition, it looks at total body water, because total body water is how we look at fat-free mass. More muscle, more water in the muscle, right? So we look at that number. You want more of that. So you might get a teensy bit of it, but that's the whole reason I switched to HCl, is you don't have to take the higher doses. The dosing is somewhere between 750 milligrams to 1.5 grams. I mean, it's tiny doses, so you don't have to take a lot. And by the way, the other cool thing with creatine, I've been last summer, did so much international travel, jumping time zones. And I read about it for sleep deprivation. It's the best jet lag formula there ever has been. It's amazing.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Solved my problems.
So does it help you fall asleep, or is it just
No,
that?
it gives you that energy. So what I do is the minute I land, I take some, and then I'll take it 2 more doses throughout the day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I actually read a study that was saying that if you are sleep deprived and you take creatine, the creatine will actually help your mental performance, because if you're taking the creatine with the sleep deprivation. So I guess
you need enough.
Yeah,
your muscles will preferentially use it, and you need enough to get into your brain too. So I pop a little bit more when I'm traveling to make sure I have it. Some of these neurodegenerative studies. Now, the company that has the patent on this HCl, I turned them on to some big top, if I said their names, you would know them, brain researchers who are using it now in their brain studies, because, they don't have to now use 20 grams of monohydrate, which is what they were doing, which was causing GI distress. Now they can use a couple grams.
Oh my God, I want to try this. I'll
send you some.
Please do. Yeah, I'm going to send it to you. I really will, because I haven't started to take creatine because I'm one of those girls, women, who don't want to be bloated, who don't want to do all that. And so I was
Who
like,
needs to be bloated?
well,
Who
that's,
said, you know what? Sign me up for that bloat.
yeah, no, I mean, exactly. But, and then I want to, so that was, and the thing is, I'm not a shake person, right? I don't believe in these shakes. Shakes you end up having 1,000 calories in a shake and mostly sugar. So I like to actually eat real food. Are you mixing creatine with water? How do you do it?
So I have two different ways I have it. One
Yeah.
is in capsules. I put it together with taurine and magnesium because
Mm,
I wanted a little ATP booster. And both of those, I mean, we know taurine helps with longevity, but both of those help make ATP. So I was like, and we never seem to get enough of this stuff. So I was like, I'll put that all together. So that's the product I created. And it's in capsules. You take 3 and you can take another dose. Like I'll take 3 as my foundation. Then if I'm going to the gym, I'll take another 3, or you can use the powder and throw it. What I like to do when I'm going to the gym is electrolytes, creatine, and some essential amino acids.
yeah. Okay. So tell me the day in the life. I want to know all these things. I have a pen too, because I think these are, I think this is like, I love this. This is what it's about, right? Habits and hustle. I want to know what time you wake up, what you do every day. Go. Let me know.
What do I do every day? I wake up, I take my thyroid.
What time do you wake up? I want to know the time.
Generally, I'm waking up right now. I'm a little like I woke up at 4:30 because I have some stuff going on business-wise that I was processing, but I got up at 5:30. But normally, once it's not daylight saving stupid, I think this is the dumbest thing ever. I
Yeah.
wake up about 6:30.
Okay. And what do you do? What's the first thing? Okay. So what is your routine? What's your morning
So
routine?
yeah, I've been playing around with it because I was doing meditation every single morning, and now I kind of have been reading instead. So I get up, I do my thyroid. My husband hits the coffee, most importantly. And
Hmm.
then I always get on the bioimpedance scale. It reports to my phone. I always watch the trend lines. So I believe that we should weigh in every single day. I travel with a bioimpedance scale. I have one at home and they go into my phone. So, I don't pay attention to it so much as will check to make sure, because here's the thing. Twice I have had weird weight gain. Once during the pandemic, and then once when I landed in Spain, where literally my weight would go up a pound or 2 every day. And one time it was an autoimmune thing going on. Another time it was because I changed my thyroid medication and didn't pay attention to the fact that, like, I went from what I normally do over to Armour and literally gained 6 pounds in, like, 3 days. So, if you're not weighing in, you wouldn't know, right? And
Right.
other part of that is when you're shifting your body composition, called recomping, right? You're putting on muscle. And I think for all of us, our biggest goal should be to pack on as much muscle as humanly possible, which if I'm lucky, maybe I could put on another 4 pounds in a year at this point. It's like really hard once you're kind of where you can get to.
Hmm.
But um, if I'm not watching that, I'd never know. So we do a DEXA scan once or twice a year, and then I'm monitoring that at home. So do my little thing. Right now, I'm doing reading and journaling, and then I do depends on the day. If I'm home, I like to get into my little hot sauna. I have a quick heat sauna, and then I'll go into the cold plunge. So
Like what kind of sauna you talk, like a Therasage, the ones
So
that are
we
like
have
it's
a
like a
relax yeah, it's like a relax or a Therasage, those one-person ones. So we have 2 saunas at home. We have the big infrared
yeah,
one, and I think of all of the things, the red light and HVAC, all the stuff, sauna to me is, like, the one that I think is the most important, right?
I agree. I agree. And you
Yeah.
do that in the morning.
Yeah, well, the reason being, we'll do the infrared sauna at night and watch Netflix in there. But in the morning,
Mm.
it's 10 minutes, and then I can get in the cold plunge, and I'm far enough away from my workout. Like, the last thing I wanna do, I could come home and get in the sauna. That'd be great after a workout, but I can't get into the cold plunge because that can then blunt muscle protein synthesis by blocking the inflammatory response. So I do the cold in the morning.
So you do that. Okay. And then so you do the rapid, hold on, I guess. Excuse me. You're gonna do the rapid sauna in the morning for 10 minutes. Do you get
10 minutes.
sweaty? 10 minutes. Do you get sweaty in there?
Yeah, but I always do it before my husband because I'm in there and I either do my little red light collagen mask, which I can't tell if it's working. Everyone asks, is it
I
working?
know,
I go,
right?
I don't know. I don't know if any of that stuff, I have no clue. Like I've got the big red light panel. How would we know? Like, I don't know. Uh,
Exactly. I agree.
it's so my husband puts the neck thing on, the hat on, so I
The whole
never
thing.
the sauna after him. It's absolutely nasty. So I have to get in there first or it's not going to happen. Um,
I'm
after,
curious. Hold on. I'm sorry. I'm curious with the rapid one because I have one here. I'm looking at it. It's a Therasage red light. It's like a indoor. It's like, it's
is it
canvas.
the zipper one you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Same one? You have the same type.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that type. But then I have the big thing from Sunlighten that's the far near, right? That one.
Yeah.
So,
I have the clear light I'm looking at too, but you're right. You can't get in the morning. It's like a whole thing to get in there and
yeah,
the whole thing.
I
It's
get it.
yeah.
Yeah. So, that's like a whole long thing and you have to turn it on and blah.
Yes.
So,
It has to get the heat up. It's like, I know. It's like,
yeah.
it's not 2 seconds. Yes.
Yeah, no, it's not 2 seconds. So there's that. And then generally morning brain is my money brain. So I have my thinking things. And you know what happens is I always have projects that I need to do. And I never know, this is why I could never be a professional writer, because I never know what's going to pop out and beg to be thought of. And, so usually something comes out of my head that's important in the morning and I work on it. And then I eat breakfast. You're going to ask what? So I'll tell you, currently I have been playing around with dairy, Greek style yogurt. For a long time, I couldn't eat dairy. Then it looked like my gut was healed, and I'm back on dairy. Although now I'm doing another food sensitivity test to see how I'm doing with it. So I think I'm cool with it. So what I've been doing is doing Greek style yogurt and stirring in bone broth protein powder. So I have a bone broth protein powder, 80% collagen. I stir it into the Greek style yogurt, so I'm getting everything. So that's what I like to do.
That's a good idea. I'm so sick
Yes.
of eggs. I need to eat protein in the morning. That's a really good idea.
Well, and you don't get enough from eggs. You have to do eggs plus egg whites.
Yeah, I do that. By the way, that's what I do, but I didn't realize you can't get enough from eggs. What do you mean?
Well, you could, but you're going to get think about it. Each egg, depending on the size of the egg, is maybe 6 grams of protein.
That's true. So I add.
So you'd have to eat 5 eggs.
I do 2 eggs and I add about 3 egg whites. Is that kind of fine?
Probably need a couple more egg whites, maybe at least another egg white.
Really? Wow. I feel like also if you eat, I mean, I think for me, what happened was now I'm like I'm sensitive to eggs. So I've been eating them every day.
I don't like to eat like eggs or dairy. When I did all of the food sensitivity testing that drove me to write the Virgin Diet, and I looked at so many food sensitivity tests. And then I talked to the head of the lab and I'm like, I see number 1, eggs and dairy, eggs and dairy, eggs and dairy, eggs and dairy. Number 2 was corn, soy, peanuts. Gluten's another type of test. So where you might see wheat, you're really looking at gluten. Gluten drives gut permeability anyway. But, I just think it's something we have to be careful about getting into the every day with, that we got to rotate these things, which is hard because it's so easy to get into a breakfast habit. Like of all the things, like I know what we do for dinner every night and it's super easy, but we rotate. But breakfast, it's like, who wants to think about it?
No, I know. And then, by the way, are you like not an oatmeal? I mean, because protein in the morning, I know you're going to say that, but what about oatmeal? Remember when oatmeal was a thing and people loved oatmeal? Do you ever eat oatmeal in the morning, or that's such a shonda? Like,
you know what? I think there's some great things with oatmeal. I don't think it's peasant food, but I don't feel good when I do it. Like I love oatmeal, but I could have like maybe a half a cup and then have the other stuff. But I find that I feel best when I eat mainly protein with some fat in the morning, like take that yogurt, throw in some freshly ground flaxseed meal, something like that. And then I go off to the gym with my essential aminos and my creatine and my electrolytes. And then I come back and generally I'll have protein and carbs as my lunch. So whatever we make for dinner, we always make a bunch of. And if we ended up like plowing through all of our protein we made for dinner, we always have some grass-fed ground beef that we can make up. So like today at lunch, I had grass-fed beef patties and blackberries and blueberries.
Oh, I love that. Okay, wait. So then we're not even, okay, why are we not, JJ, you're going ahead of me. So basically
Sorry.
you have your breakfast and then you go to the gym, and then each workout is how long?
So I either go upstairs because I have an amazing gym that I created upstairs, or I go to the gym. My husband likes to go to the gym. He likes the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty self-guided, so I can do whichever. If I'm going to do my high intensity functional training, generally I'll do that as more exercise snacks throughout the day. But if I'm doing it as actual workout, then, I like to do that at home because I would look like a freak at the gym doing it. So
What are you doing? Like, tell me what you're doing. What does it look like?
so it's so funny. So for Eudaimonia Summit, they're like, we'd love you to teach an exercise class. And I'm thinking to myself, I've not taught an exercise class for 25 years. Okay, I'll do it. And then I was like, what the heck am I going to teach? And with no weights, because I was like, I'll teach how to, an upper body workout. Well, I couldn't because there were no weights. So what I taught was high intensity functional training, right? So it's doing HIIT, where we know we could do HIIT with sprinting or running upstairs, but this is functional movements like mountain climbers or burpees or jumping jacks or air jumps, squats, jumps, right? So it's functional movements done in a high intensity way. So if I'm doing that stuff at home, what I like to do, I have a sprint treadmill. So I'll do some rounds of the sprint treadmill. Then I have an exerciser and I'll do overhead push pull while I'm on the exerciser, which is this mini stepper. Then I'll get on and do box jumps. Then I'll do some up downs. Then I'll do some mountain climbers. And sometimes I have a power plate that they just sent me that I'm playing around with. So I'll do things, jumps over that. So I like to mess around with all the different things. And the way I do it is I make a list of all possible stuff, and then I just start to check off because I'm very goal oriented. So I just play
Yes.
around and mess around with all these different things, which you wouldn't be able to do at the gym.
No, you cannot. And how long do you work out for about?
Well, if I'm doing high intensity functional training, it depends on the way I'm trying to do it. But I mean, like I did it for eudaimonia and everyone was pretty much destroyed in 20. We did 20 minutes total, but we did it in 2 to 3 minute bursts that had some intensity and then a little bit of recoveries in them. And people were just like done.
Die. Yeah.
Done. And then here's what's cool. At the end of it, I learned this from Gabby Reese. She taught me this on this podcast we did. And I'm like, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard. I put balance training at the end because that's when you're
Oh,
tired. When are you going to have a problem with balance? When you're tired. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. So I had everyone do balance stuff at the end, which we're all falling over. So it was great.
that's a good idea. I like Gabby. That's a good idea.
It's so smart.
Yeah,
She's a smarty pants.
it
Anyway,
is.
so basically it depends on what's going on. Like if I'm doing HIIT training, it may be 20 minutes, 30 minutes max. If I'm doing resistance training, might be 40 minutes. Just depends what I'm doing. I like to put everything, I've got the body divided into upper body pushing, upper body pulling, and then hips and thigh. Every once in a while I'll throw some core work in, but the reality is I'm doing squats and push-ups and mountain climbers. So it's like my core is working.
It's all the same stuff. So basically, you're saying all the same things we've always done. You're just doing it at a high intensity, and that's how you do it. But you're saying rucking. Rucking's like, again, this is another one of these fitness trends. I mean, it's been around forever.
It's not a fitness trend. We did it when we went to school.
We did. Well, I was going to say it's a fitness trend, which is not even a trend. I mean, it's like you're basically wearing a weighted vest or a knapsack or
Yeah.
whatever.
We're basically doing the backpack you used to wear to school that now they don't anymore. Now we're just doing it. It's like the stuff you did when you were 8, we're doing it again.
100%.
Tarts.
How often are you exactly? How often are you doing it? Every day?
No. So a couple times a week.
How
Here's
long?
the thing. So I travel like about 75% of the time. I'm not traveling with a rucking vest.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not going to do it. So, if I'm home and meeting a friend for a walk, so I have a girlfriend that I walk with and she's about 5'2". I'm 6 feet. Clearly, I got to do something here. Otherwise, so even though she's a fast one, I throw a rucking vest on. So,
Yeah.
that's what I will do.
That makes sense. Okay. So how about so basically nothing you've said has been that outrageous. So
Nothing outrageous. It's
yeah,
just normal stuff. The basics work the best.
the basic that was how we began this podcast. Like the basics do work the best, even though people want to find these magic.
I know they want a trendy
pills.
formula. I keep trying to think of a formula. Here's my overall formula though. The first thing you do is make sure you're getting in 8,000 steps a day, at least, bare minimum. That is like flossing your teeth. Once you have that dialed, and ideally a couple times, that's just throughout the day. You're moving all throughout the day. You're standing instead of sitting. You're walking instead of standing. Throw a rucking vest in where you can. Add a little intensity where you can. All that. Then you add in resistance training. And you train to get better at life. So you do things that mimic normal life. In life, you have to get off the toilet. So you're squatting. You're picking up groceries. You're doing deadlifts. You do this stuff, right? Then you add in some high-intensity interval training to improve your VO2 max. And then one day a week, you throw in a yoga class. So you get your balance and flexibility. That's it. That's the formula.
I love that. Wait, I wanted to ask you something, and now I can't remember, but that's fine. I wanted to ask you about GLP-1s. They're a huge topic, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, honey, you did not see it was all over. Everyone's going, this is going viral. So at Eudaimonia, they had a GLP-1 panel.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So it was this Tufts nutrition researcher. I don't remember his name. I just remember Dariush, but I don't remember the last name. It started with an M. Then they had Zachary Knight, who was a neuroscientist. I was in the middle. Then they had Callie Means. And then they had Jillian Michaels. And my belief on these, first of all, I don't believe that you lose weight to get healthy. I believe you have to get metabolically healthy in order to put on muscle and burn fat. We are in a metabolic health crisis, as we know. Like I think it's probably less than 5% of the population now is metabolically healthy. I mean, the fact that we are almost at 80% overweight and obese, and that we have a very high amount of people who are normal weight that are normal weight obese, it's absolutely frightening, right? For the first time, the obesity trend lines are starting to normalize where they've been exponentially increasing, and it's because of these. The issue with the GLP-1s, I think they're the greatest longevity peptide, and they're being used completely inappropriately for what we could do with them. The pharmaceutical companies have jacked these prices. If we could just compound them in small microdoses, they actually can heal your metabolism. And when you've got someone who's in a metabolic hole, trying to pull them out of it just with diet and exercise, I mean, we would all love this. Here's the thing. What would we love? If everyone could eat healthy, exercise, get great sleep, manage your stress, and have great relationships and believe in something bigger than them, that would be so great, wouldn't it? But when you're in a metabolic hole that you can't climb out of, all of that looks impossible. And you're hurt, you're inflamed, you can't move more. I mean, I'm working with a guy who's 385 pounds, now 350. And, he was getting 2,500 steps in a day because everything hurt. And he wouldn't go on these because of all the BS, shame, misinformation out there about them. Like, it is so ridiculous to me. It pisses me off. So this whole thing over here was Callie and Jillian screaming, basically called me a liar and told me I was full of, I don't know if I can swear on this.
You can swear on my thing. You can.
Right? Shit. Called out the other scientists who are like the sweetest guys ever. I'm like, game on. I go, I have all the studies for anything I'm saying here. I've got the research, but I first got interested in them because my son's got a traumatic brain injury. And I was at a lecture, and the doctor who'd been using them for a decade started talking about neuroregeneration. And I'm like, are you kidding? And my son, it has changed his life. Like, whatever I have to do to continue to get this from him, he's on semaglutide, compounded, small dose. And, this was a kid who was like, they did a brain scan, a neuroquant, and it's like 75% brain loss from, the second injury over the course of a year. Like, he was going down and dying. And this has pulled him out. And guess what? He's happy. So we know like they help with inflammation, they help improve insulin
Right.
sensitivity, they help with microvascular dilation, they reduce blood pressure, they improve lipid profiles, they are neuroregenerative and cardioregenerative, like all these things. And there's all this BS out there, and a lot of it's because they're being dosed totally crazy. But then you have people out there screaming and yelling that we just need to eat better and exercise well. And clearly we do, but that's not going to save the planet at this point.
Right. Exactly. You know, it's funny. I I know Dr. Tina Moore. I'm sure you talked to her. I've talked to her.
I love Tina so much.
Yeah, she's great. Um, you
Yeah, you
know,
guys were just together, she told me.
yeah. We were
And you saved her with the
with the Instagram. I know, and she's telling everyone that. That's so funny. Um, and I find it interesting because, like everything, politics, everyone is so divisive. Like, God forbid you don't agree with somebody, you get like canceled or shut down. And, it's interesting because people in the fitness realm I've seen get very, very angry, right, about this, right? And I feel like, to your point, like if it helps somebody, it also, if it jump starts you, it
right, if
just,
it pulls you out of the hole.
right. If it's a jump starter and and it gets you to a place where it can get you to at least to 10% along the way, what is it? People are just going crazy and being very, very vicious for it. I think the problem is also it is expensive. And the concern is what happens when you're not on it. Do you rebound? Do you gain all the weight back? Do you go right back to all the inflammation? Like, is it something like where is where is a microdose? I
Okay,
think that's the
so
problem.
here's the issue. If you have fatty liver, 30% of the population now does, most don't know they have it. If you have insulin resistance, if you're obese, you have a GLP-1 deficiency. Now, we don't know if you also have resistance because a lot of times with hormones, you get resistant as well, like insulin
Mhm.
resistance. But let's say you have a GLP-1 deficiency. So we can start to do the things to help your body produce it, right? Like improve your L cells, things like acromantia, you probably heard of that.
Mhm.
Things that help slow down the breakdown of this. There's this DPP4 enzyme that breaks it down. So we could slow it down. We can help with production of it. However, some of these people may never have it come back online. It doesn't need to be expensive. When you look at the compounded versions, it could be $50 a month. For a lot of these people, they're on polypharmacy. They're spending more on their high blood pressure, their
Mhm.
lipid lowering drugs. And if they went on this, they would, and they eat less, right? So if they went on these things, low dose, a microdose is usually about a fifth of the dose. You may have to go up to the starting dose, but then you could back down. But here's what needs to happen. If it could be the case that if you wanted to use one of these, you had to go in and get your body composition tested and be consistent with checking your body composition because it doesn't cause muscle loss. Caloric restriction causes muscle loss. Any diet poorly designed causes a 20 to 30% loss in skeletal muscle. That is the diet. It's not the drug. The drug actually doesn't cause muscle loss. It doesn't. In fact, you can gain muscle on the drug. So that's BS. But
So that's the thing that a lot of people are talking about, right?
not true, though. It's the diet. It's the diet. So if you are any diet that does not have optimal protein and you're not doing resistance training, you'll lose skeletal muscle if you're doing caloric restriction. That's the way that works. So if you are eating correctly, getting that protein and maybe supplementing with essential amino acids if you're too low in protein, if you're doing your resistance training, which first you just start with getting the person to move, because a lot of these people are, the average person's walking 3,000 steps a day, 3,000. So really, if we just got them to walk to 8,000, if we started to get some air squats in, we just get them moving. And, working with people who are morbidly obese, we oftentimes have to have an air squat over, say, a couch arm because it just hurts so much. So we got to get the inflammation down. Then you start to improve the diet, right? You get them moving more, you get them sleeping. They might need to do some sleep therapy because a lot of times when you're obese, you don't sleep well. Then you can taper it. Will they have to be on it for life? They might have to cycle it for life, low dose, but I contend that that would be better than living a life of obesity on medications.
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem is people are abusing it. I think people who don't need it are taking it I think like a lot of fitness influencers are taking it and they're
What are
claiming
they
that
taking it for? Are they taking it because they had issues?
vanity reasons.
Okay,
Vanity
because there's
reasons.
other, I mean, yes, you could use it for vanity reasons. However, you could also use it for inflammation. You could use it for ApoB. Like my husband's on a teensy cycling dose, and these cycling doses are not meant to take your appetite away, right? It's
Right.
purely
Right.
to lower his ApoB that was chronically elevated. We tried everything, couldn't get it to go. Same with my son is using it for his brain. So you can use low doses of these, not for body composition, but for inflammation, for insulin sensitizing, for neuroregeneration, for microvascular dilation. There's other things they do. And there's a whole host. Like if you go to Consensus and ChatGPT and plug in benefits of GLP-1 agonists, it's kind of mind-blowing, overwhelming. That's a PubMed, thing. So
But what about the side effects? Like,
well, the side effects when you're low dosing are not an issue.
so it's only when you're taking a big dose is that
Yeah, like the dose they start people with is ridiculous. Like it's way higher than it should ever be.
do you have to know, but does your body get acclimated to whatever
Not if
dose
you're
you're
cycling
taking?
it.
So what does a cycle mean? Give us examples.
So so let's say I am not a physician. I don't play one on podcasts. If I were working with someone who I could work with a physician who would get compounded pharmacy, tirzepatide or semaglutide, I would start with about a fifth of the starting dose. And I would start super low with that in combination with they have to track their food. They have to make sure they're getting in their protein, 1 gram per pound of target body weight. And then we're going to start to move. And then we see how they do. And then we get them, we'll see if we have to raise it or not. And then if we do have to raise it, you just continue to do all the other stuff. So hopefully you can start to take it down. And then cycling might be once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, once every month.
Okay. That makes sense, actually. Do you take it or no?
I take a teensy bit of it. Now, here's what's interesting. I tracked everything with this because I have a weird autoimmune thing that every once in a while, remember I talked about how my weight went up?
Yeah.
This weird little autoimmune thing that every once in a while will trigger. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And so I was 144 pounds and like 11, 12%. I think it was 11% body fat when I did it. And I went on, and the person who initially put me on a starting dose. It was too much. It was way too much. And so that dropped me and it was funny. Here's what's weird. I was actually tracking my calories and I didn't change what I was doing or eating by more than 200 calories, but I went down to 138. And so
Mhm.
I popped the dose way down and started cycling it. So basically a fifth of the dose once or twice a month, right?
Mhm.
And came back up to my normal weight, normal body fat. And so it's one you just have to watch. But I use the teensiest dose every once in a while to keep
Right.
all the autoimmune stuff at bay because there's good research on that.
Right. 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 I want to just end with one other question, and we can just wrap it. But let's talk about like a few, or as many as you want, but some popular habits that people do that are actually detrimental, that they think are good for them.
OMAD,
OMAD?
1 meal a day.
Oh, who's doing that? Oh, is this like intermittent fasters, you mean?
Well, fasting's kind of such a tough word because what's it really mean? It could mean anything from normal eating, like stop eating 3 hours before bed, eat about an hour or two after waking up in the morning. That's like to me what we should be doing. Get that, 10 to 12 hour window. It could be eating, compressing that a little bit. And there's some, benefits for that. Some of it might be caloric restriction, but some of it's hard to say, like, I don't know when autophagy starts. I don't know how you test for it. I don't know how anybody knows this. I don't know why we'd all be the same. It would seem like it would have to be with your metabolic health, but I think there's some benefits to these things, but I also think there's some detriments to it. So that's one that I don't like is OMAD.
I love that you call it that. But while we're on that habit, I find that for women, it's for hormonal reasons. Women are not getting the same benefits from fasting or intermittent fasting as I see some, like, my male friends or my male
Right.
counterparts get, you
Yeah.
know?
We are complex machines. Like, they are like the VW. Remember growing up, everyone who had a VW Bug, you could literally go in there with like a bobby pin and fix it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Versus
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So, it's just we're complicated and you mess with us a little bit, it throws all of our hormones off, whether it's fasting, keto, any of these types of things can be wonky for us. I'm not a fan of keto for women unless now, diets are tools. So, if you've got cancer, fasting and keto would be a different situation, right? So, I'm not talking about that. I'm looking at powerful aging and looking
Yeah.
into that. So again, you always have to look at it because I'll get asked about all these different diets and I go, they're tools. What are you trying to accomplish? And realize you might use a tool short term. It doesn't mean that that's going to be that diet that's going to heal this issue right now is the diet you need to stay on forever.
What is your idea? Okay, so give me another popular habit that people are doing that's actually detrimental.
Hmm. I don't know. Like, what are the other things that they're doing that are not healthy?
Mm,
Um,
lots of things.
I don't know, putting too much fat in everything.
Like butter and coffee type of thing?
Like, just especially for women, like, easy to overload your calories with a lot of this fat. I remember, as I first started to really track food, and I just did an interview with Will Lee and, talking about olive oil, and I'm like, and then I started to really track. I was like, wow, I think I put a half a cup of olive oil on my salad.
Right, right, right.
It adds up, too much healthy food's unhealthy. It's got to go somewhere. I always think it's funny with keto because people are like, I'm doing a ketogenic diet to burn fat. I'm like, well, are you burning dietary fat or body fat?
100%. I think the problem is a big myth is how many calories we over index how many calories we're actually burning. And
Yeah.
so we think, oh, we can eat that piece of cake or we can do that because we went to the gym for 45 minutes. But we actually we only like burn a third, I think it was, of what we actually think we do.
Well,
So
because
like,
it doesn't take out your resting metabolic rate. And you don't look at your body like that. It's yes, in a way it is a bank account, but it's much more of a chemistry lab. And we can't ever look at, and I used to do this way back in the day. I remember like going and eating a bunch of crap and then sitting on like, the exercise bike at the gym for hours as if this was going to work this way. It
right.
just does not work that way. So
It does not work that way.
right, but if you're looking at the treadmill, it says calories burned. It didn't subtract out your resting metabolic rate. How many calories you would have burned if you just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So the biggest way, actually, this is really interesting. So we have our metabolism, we have our resting metabolic rate, we have the thermic effect of food, and then we have activity. And in activity, we have exercise and we have non-exercise, right? The biggest needle mover for us, I mean, for our resting metabolic rate, really the only way we can shift that is to put more muscle on our body. For our overall metabolism, the biggest needle mover is really that non-exercise activity. It's how much you're moving all throughout the day. And one of the
Hmm.
studies, like I'm thinking, I mean, there's been multiple studies of this that show in overfeeding situations, people move more, and in underfeeding situations, people move less. Like our body strives for homeostasis. And so if
Yeah.
you can start to really track, and I become a little like, I like to focus on something to really lock it in. And so I've been really focusing on steps and making sure I'm moving all throughout the day. And I love the research. I don't know if you've seen the research on Vilpon exercise snacks. They
Might
just
see it.
so they did a study where they showed people and they looked at two groups versus nothing. So one group, no exercise snacks. And these are short 1 to 2 minute, really high intensity things like I was talking about when we started. And so one group did 4.4 minutes of exercise snacks a day. It would be like doing, 2 to 3 circuits. One group did 10 minutes of exercise snacks a day. The group that did 10 minutes lowered their all-cause mortality by 40% and their risk of cancer and heart disease by 50%. And the group that did 4.4 minutes lowered it by 28%. And we also know that if you did 30 air squats, you actually will lower your blood sugar response. Or no, if you did 10 air squats every hour for 8 hours, 8.5 hours, you will have the same blood sugar control or better than if you did a 30-minute walk. So I think that one of these really important things for us to start to think about is how do we get more vigorous movement, run up the stairs, do the air squats, do the squat jumps all throughout the day.
No, I could not agree with you more on that. I mean, I always say that I would prefer to do 3 10-minute workouts a day versus a long, extraneous one because it's about how much you're moving your body during the day. It's
Right.
not because most people go to the gym and then after the gym, they're like sedentary for the next 23 and a half hours. Not the smartest thing.
Well, the research also showed, I remember early on, this was in graduate school, there was a study that came out that looked at people that were instructed to do 3 10-minute sessions of cardio a day versus one 30-minute session. And they compared the two groups, and the 10-minute session had way better cardiovascular effects because of it. And their whole hypothesis was that it was because you either did 30 minutes or you didn't do it all versus you could do maybe one 10-minute one. But I also think if I know I only have 10 minutes, I'm going to work a lot harder than if I'm going to push myself through an hour. Like then you pace yourself. So
That's
you don't
true.
pace.
That's 100% true too, right? Because you're like, I'm only doing this for 10 minutes. I might as well
Right.
put all my,
Let's go.
let's do it. No, that's such a good point. Okay, JJ, I've had you for a long time on this show. I appreciate, after all the technical difficulties, I appreciate you coming on. Tell people how they can find out more about you, where they find you besides the Creatine, which I
The Creatine that I'm sending you,
yes,
send me your address.
I'm going
Uh,
to. I'm going to send you now.
yes, yes. So very fun stuff. I'll give you a couple websites, but jjvirgin.com is where everything is. And that's where like I have my Well Beyond 40 podcast. Um, I created 2 different challenges. One is our Eat Protein First challenge that takes you for a week of really figuring out how much protein you need and making sure I have people eat their protein first so they get it in because I heard from too many women, I can't, I'm too full. I'm like, well, eat it first. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
then and you have to use a food scale and you have to use a biome or a little chronometer app. So I use a food scale and an app to make sure that you got it. So that is jjvirgin.com/protein first. And then I just launched at Eudaimonia a snack challenge. So it's 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 minutes to win it, a snack challenge where I take them through the things that they can do for 10 days. Because I figure if you do it for 10 days, like I don't believe that it's 21 days to do a habit. Like where'd that urban legend come from? Like just get used to doing it and be amazed how you feel. So that one's jjvirgin.com/snack challenge. But again, I'm like,
I love
what are
that.
these simple, actionable things that we can do that will they'll move the needle, right? They'll make a big
Yeah.
difference.
I love that. I can't wait. I'm looking for your information. I can't, you're gonna have to give it to me after. I don't know why it's not in here, but I gotta send you my address. Thank you again. And I think, we're going to do this again for you right now. So I'll see you
Yes,
soon.
we are. Well, we're going to do our business one.
Yes, that's fine.
Here.
Either one. Okay. So bye.